Donald Trump leaned forward, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. Barack Obama is the reason our borders are broken, the reason American families are left unprotected, and the reason chaos has spread. His words were sharp, designed not just to argue, but to wound. The audience shifted uneasily, some gasping, others erupting in applause. Cameras zoomed in as Trump raised his hand, hammering every syllable with the weight of accusation. 8 years of weakness, 8 years of failure, and now he wants to lecture us about responsibility? The attack was sudden, merciless, and personal. The tension thickened instantly, everyone waiting to see if Obama would flinch, if he would answer, or if Trump had just won the room in one devastating strike. Barack Obama sat calmly, his expression steady as the storm of words from Donald Trump echoed across the room. The setting was not just another forum. It was a nationally broadcast debate on immigration, with millions of viewers watching every second. On one side, Trump radiated aggression, portraying himself as the warrior against what he called a failed legacy. On the other, Obama represented experience and composure, carrying the weight of 8 years in office and the credibility that came with it. The moderators tried to maintain order, but the clash between the two men quickly overtook any prepared questions. Trump pounded the table with words like betrayal, disaster, and weakness. His supporters in the audience cheered loudly, their chants rising in rhythm with his anger. For them, this was the moment they had waited for. Trump confronting the man they believed had failed to protect their country. Yet not everyone in the room shared that view. On the opposite side, Obama's defenders sat quietly, leaning forward, watching with intent. They remembered a presidency marked by complex challenges, compromises, and reforms. They saw Trump's words not as strength, but as reckless theater. The cameras captured every reaction, the nods of agreement, the folded arms of disapproval, the whispers between reporters scribbling headlines that would dominate the news cycle. It was no longer just about immigration policy. It was about two visions of America colliding in real time. Two leaders fighting not just for arguments, but for history itself. Trump's voice rang out again, sharper than before. He opened the floodgates and Americans paid the price. He chose illegal immigrants over our own citizens. The statement hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. The stage was set. The room was divided and the nation held its breath, waiting for the next strike. Trump's voice grew louder, his hand chopping through the air as if to punctuate each accusation. You abandoned the working class. You opened the borders, let criminals walk in and left Americans to suffer. That's your legacy, Barack. Weakness and betrayal. The crowd erupted again, some cheering wildly, others booing in protest. The moderators attempted to calm the noise, but the moment had spun far beyond their control. Obama leaned toward the microphone, his tone calm, yet cutting. Donald, you can shout as much as you like, but shouting doesn't make lies true. What you call weakness was actually leadership. What you call betrayal was protecting American values, values you've never even tried to understand. Trump smirked, shaking his head. Protecting American values? You put the rights of illegal immigrants above American workers. You tied the hands of law enforcement. You cared more about being popular in Europe than about keeping our people safe. Obama's eyes narrowed slightly. And you, Donald, care more about applause than about truth. Let's talk facts. Deportations under my administration reached record highs. Border security was strengthened with technology and manpower. You know that. But you twist it because fear gets you cheers. The room fell into a tense hush, the weight of Obama's words cutting through the noise. Trump's supporters shouted back, "But lies! Lies!" But their voices could not drown out the growing sense that Obama had landed a precise blow. Trump, refusing to yield, leaned closer to the microphone. You can spin numbers all day, Barack, but the American people know the truth. They lived it, families destroyed, jobs stolen, communities torn apart. And you stood there with speeches while the border collapsed. Obama replied without raising his voice. And you stood on the sidelines, mocking and dividing, offering anger instead of solutions. You exploit pain instead of healing it. That's not leadership, that's theater. Gasps spread through the room. The clash was no longer a debate. It was a collision. Every sentence was a blade, every response an attempt to pierce deeper. The moderator sat frozen, letting the two men drive the night while the cameras captured the raw conflict that was gripping not just the room, but the nation. Trump slammed his fist on the podium, his voice rising above the chaos. "You failed this country, Barack. You failed its people. And the only reason you're standing here tonight is because the media still worships you. But the truth is simple. You let America down, and history will never forgive you." The words echoed across the room, thunderous and raw. His supporters roared in approval, stomping their feet, chanting his name. Reporters scribbled furiously, sensing that this was the line that would lead tomorrow's headlines. For a moment, Obama simply stood still. His silence stretched, the pause deliberate, and the room leaned in. When he finally spoke, his tone was measured, but each word landed like a hammer. "Donald," he said slowly, "you can build all the walls you want, but walls don't make a nation strong. Truth does. Dignity does. And respect for people, all people, does. You shout about failure, but the real failure is confusing cruelty with strength." The room froze. The cheers collapsed into silence. Even Trump, poised to fire back, hesitated as the weight of the words sank in. Obama's reply wasn't long. It wasn't theatrical. It was devastating in its clarity. He leaned closer to the microphone. "History doesn't remember the loudest voice in the room. It remembers the one who spoke for justice. And on that measure, Donald, you will always come up short." Gasps rippled through the hall. Cameras panned across the audience, stunned faces, open mouths, even a few nods of reluctant agreement from those who had cheered Trump minutes earlier. The silence was electric, charged, absolute. For once, Trump had no immediate comeback. The energy he had stoked with his fury evaporated into stillness, replaced by the echo of Obama's words that hung in the air like a verdict. The silence in the hall lingered, heavy and undeniable. Reporters whispered into their microphones, struggling to capture the weight of what had just happened. Viewers across the country watched in disbelief as the energy shifted completely. The man known for his thunderous comebacks was quiet, and the man often accused of being too calm had just silenced the storm with a single reply. Obama did not press further. He simply let his words resonate, understanding that nothing more needed to be added. The audience remained hushed, a mix of awe and unease filling the space. Even those who came expecting a fight realized they had witnessed something greater, a moment where clarity defeated noise. Finally, Obama spoke once more, his tone steady and unyielding. "Leadership isn't about how loud you can shout or how many insults you can throw. Leadership is about building, not tearing down. It's about lifting people up, not pushing them aside. If we forget that, then we lose not just debates, we lose ourselves as a nation." The crowd broke into applause, not the partisan cheer that had greeted Trump earlier, but a deeper, more unified sound. It was applause that came from respect, even from those who did not agree with Obama's policies. For a moment, the division gave way to recognition of something rare, a voice that rose above the fight. Trump tightened his jaw, forcing a smirk, but the moment had slipped. The headlines would not be about his attacks. They would not be about his fury. They would be about the silence that followed Obama's words. Silence that said more than any argument could. Across America, commentators replayed the clip again and again. Trump's fury, Obama's pause, and then the crushing reply that ended the exchange. Social media flooded with reactions, some praising Trump's aggression, but many more marveling at the calm force of Obama's words. The divide was still there, but the narrative had shifted. By the end of the night, one thing was clear. History had recorded another unforgettable clash between two figures who embodied different visions of America. Trump's fire had met Obama's steel, and for once the fire was extinguished by a single, steady voice. And as the cameras faded and the lights dimmed, the lasting image was not of Trump shouting, but of Obama's words hanging in the silence, words that would echo long after the stage was empty.